Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the NPA report. I have a guest today who wears many hats, has been involved in so many different things, including we sit together on a board, and we were just together at meetings. And I'm looking next to me, and I'm thinking, I got to get this guy on the show because you all need to meet him. David Edwards, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, you have such a storied background. So, I'm going to let you explain to people, kind of up to the moment where you and I ended up being in the same space.
Well, let's start with where I am and work our way back to how I got there, I suppose. I'm presently working as a wellness officer for a city police department, public safety department in Southeast Michigan. And I also am the founder and president of an organization called Call for Backup, which focuses on suicide awareness and prevention and uniformed services, along with a lot of resilience training, critical incident stress management training, and those kinds of things. But this is not where I envisioned myself 10, 15 years ago. My background is in church ministry, and I was a pastor in several states for a number of years. Moved back to Michigan and settled into home in our home area where my wife and I both grew up. And both of my sons became police officers. My younger son first started out as a Detroit police officer for a couple of years and then actually lateraled over to the Taylor Police Department, where he actually, about 5 years afterward, became the department's first line of duty death in July of 2010. My older son had only been on the job about 6 months at the time, and he stuck with it for a number of years. He did a total of 11 years in policing until his social media empire took off. And I'm not going to advertise for him because, but he decided that he was going to go part-time, and then he after about 11 years left policing altogether, and now he's doing a number of other things and doing it quite well and is very happy. But
So we want to tell people that they need to look up Mike the cop, who has been my guest on this show, and is a
all right
really
then.
is an amazing guy. So yeah, when you after the show, go look up Mike the cop.
Yeah, yeah, he really is a good guy, and he's still got quite a footprint in the law enforcement space, and helps a lot of folks. And when I train, I still show, to give people a little break once in a while. I still show some of his humorous videos and things like that. People get a lot of pleasure out of that. So, I mean, I'm proud that he's my son, and I'm proud of a lot of things that he's done, of course. Um, so. When my younger son Matt was killed in July of 2010, it was only a couple of months later when his department asked, because of my background in ministry and connection as a member of a law enforcement family, if I would be interested in becoming a chaplain with the department. I immediately said yes. Immediately started taking the training that was going to be required, which included training in critical incident stress management. And one of our police academies in the area actually has a public service chaplain academy, which is a really unique experience. Doesn't teach any theology, but it teaches, if you're a chaplain, how to be a partner in a patrol car. And it was really, really helpful. And then not long after that, I became a reserve police officer as well. So that sort of brought me up to where I am today. I've taken a lot of other training in crisis management and traumatic stress. I have too many certifications to list in the areas of traumatic stress. So that's been my specialty for a number of years, is not only working in the police department here as their internal wellness guy, but also leading a team that provides critical incident response to a number of police agencies in southern Wayne County, Michigan, and Monroe County, Michigan. So that keeps me pretty busy.
Well, absolutely. And I, and you're involved in national things as well. And I just have to ask you, as the parent of a fallen police officer, I'm guessing that it gives you extra credibility when you are, dealing with families and officers. Um, but does it do things that you experience bring you back to 2010?
All the time. And I've had a lot of dealings with the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. Um, I've been involved in some projects there. I've also been heavily involved with concerns of police survivors. I've been a presenter at a number of their national conferences on law enforcement trauma and wellness, and have made some pretty good friendships there. And I've been a supporter for a number of survivors over the years. I really feel especially drawn to help parent survivors of line of duty deaths, simply because I identify with them on a different level than I do other survivors. Although, um, not that I don't enjoy supporting them, but I think with the parents especially, it makes more of a difference if you have somebody sitting across the table from you that really has actually experienced what you're presently experiencing. And so that's been one of my greatest joys. It's been one of my greatest pains too, because it does remind me of my own traumatic experience and the depths that I fell to, and what it took to recover from that, and then invest in something that was going to be bigger than just me. And so that's what I've struggled to do, and really hope to do and tried to do. And my son Mike and I have both been uh, sort of on the same trajectory, different paths. He chose the Mike the Cop comedy route at first, and I chose the more serious things. We actually collaborated together with an organization called Humanizing the Badge. Mike was one of the co-founders, and the other co-founder was a police officer's wife from Texas. And about a year into the development of that organization, um, they asked me if I'd be interested in coming on and managing their peer support, because neither of them were qualified to do that, and they were getting a lot of messages through social media for people looking for somebody to talk to, and so I was brought on with the idea of leading and developing a peer support program for Humanizing the Badge, and also transitioning it into a nonprofit organization because of my experience in dealing with nonprofits. And that grew and grew. Uh, and we actually, at the end of 2022, merged Humanizing the Badge with the Relentless Defender Foundation, based out of Richmond, Texas. Something that was started by Relentless Defender Apparel and our good friends, the Slaters there. And Mike has continued to be involved as a board member on that foundation. And it's just been an amazing journey. The people that we've been able to connect with through that. The Call for Backup organization that I founded and now lead was really it started out as a training program born out of Humanizing the Badge. And Humanizing the Badge has really been influential in a number of lives across the country, both with grants that we were able to make to support efforts of police agencies to interact with their communities in a variety of ways. We also provided critical incident support for some major incidents across the country, including the Pulse nightclub shooting, the 5 Dallas officers who were killed in July of 2016. We participated in the response for the Route 91 festival shooting in Las Vegas. So we had the opportunity to be a blessing to a lot of police officers and their families across the country. as a result of that organization just being in existence, and even as a result of Mike's ridiculous humor on video, it gained enough notoriety for the organization that people started to investigate and realize, hey, we're more than just a comedy show here. We're really invested in supporting the idea of literally humanizing the badge and letting people know that police officers are humans first, right?
We've seen over the course of the last few years, and you've seen it firsthand, the extraordinary need for not just police officers, but police families to have someone to talk to and to have resources available. It's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? I don't think people realize.
It is. And, I recently had the opportunity to conduct a training program for Michigan State Police about family stress. And the question I asked to the crowd was, how many of you believe that you got enough training on managing your job-related stress in the academy? And no hands were raised. And so my response to that was, well, given that you didn't receive enough, whatever training you received, how much training did your families get? Well, it's zero, right? So that was probably, for example, in the aftermath of the Paul's nightclub shooting, the reason we ended up going and we garnered an official invitation to go, we just didn't show up, but we were first invited by a spouses group to say, nobody's helping us. There are all these debriefings for our spouses, but there's nothing for us. We need some help here. So, we got permission through the official channels, and we're able to go provide that support for them as well.
Have you seen, over the last, decade or 2 decades, have you seen a switch in law enforcement? Because I'll tell you, when I started, we were told, don't talk about it, don't take it home, don't talk about it home, all of that. Have you seen a positive shift in that?
Slowly. It hasn't been a radical shift. And I do notice in the agencies that I support that younger officers tend to be more willing to talk about what they're going through. Older personnel still tend to view that as a weakness. And it's going to take a while, I think, to let all that transition through the ranks. I think in some places we're still looking at, well, I've got to do this to check the box, is what the administration is thinking when they establish programs that, everybody says we should have this, so we're going to have it. But programs don't really get utilized the way that they should. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I focus on most heavily is law enforcement suicide. I was hired as a subject matter expert with the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial and Bureau of Justice Assistance to consult on their Safe Leo program, suicide awareness for law enforcement officers. And that with that focus on suicide, we have more police officers that die by suicide every year than are feloniously killed in the line of duty. And so when you think about, we've got to have these programs to prevent officer suicide, and we go back to 2014, a symposium on officer suicide and a subsequent report that was put out by IACP called Breaking the Silence. And, there were a list of recommendations there. What should agencies do? Prevention and intervention and postvention. What should agencies be doing? And the recommendations have been there for a long time, but the there are almost no agencies in the country that are fully implementing all of those recommendations. And this is not rocket science. You know, I'm friends with a number of people across the country who are attempting to do the same work that we do in bringing awareness and teaching intervention skills and prevention programs to law enforcement agencies when it comes to mental wellness and especially officer suicide. And very few agencies are actually adapting these programs that could be very helpful, but there's a dearth of actual action, I suppose we could say, on making those things happen.
Well, how much has the political environment, what's happened since 2020, how much do you think that has impacted implementing those programs, and B, how detrimental has this political war on cops been for your average police officer?
It's demoralizing. I don't know, and when you think about 2020, there are some specific incidents that we hearken back to during that time period that caused a lot of uproar, upheaval across the country. And when police officers want the same things that everybody else in the community wants, they want fairness, they want justice, they want the same simple things that every person living in a community wants. They want safe schools and clean parks and well-maintained streets, and they want the same things that everybody else does, and yet they're ostracized and treated as if they're not a part of the community over one incident that happened in one city in a state far, far away. We used to be able to tell officers, when you're struggling, when you're just overwhelmed by what's going on the job, there are people that are here to support you. There are people here that will listen to those struggles non-judgmentally and confidentially, without fear of reprisal. We're not going to go tell your bosses that you're talking to us and those kinds of things. Everything's completely confidential. Well, then, there were riots in Massachusetts in the aftermath of the now famous Minnesota incident in 2020, and a number of officers dealing with some of the stress from responding to those riots attended critical incident stress debriefings. And now that has become a federal case where an attorney has demanded to know what these officers said in those critical incident stress debriefings, and the judge seems to be taking their side. So, it's still working through the process, and I'm not saying that that's going to be the final outcome. But if you tell people, yeah, you're going to be stressed on the job, but there are people that you can talk to confidentially, and then a judge steps in and says, "Oh no, I don't agree with that." It doesn't matter what the law says. Massachusetts has a what most people would consider an ironclad law protecting the confidentiality of those conversations, unless the officer is suicidal or homicidal, which has to be reported, of course. But and here in Michigan, we have the same type of law that protects the confidentiality of those conversations. But when is that going to be tested? It's being tested in Washington State right now as well. So when you tell people, yeah, you're going to be stressed, you should talk about it, and then they find out that, well, wait a minute, there are going to be people trying to eavesdrop on what we're saying, they're going to be even more hesitant. So
yeah, cops often become second-class citizens especially in the legal process, don't you think? Yeah, that's extraordinary. I'll tell you, we only got a little over a minute left. How important is faith? You and I have talked. You're a Christian, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
How important is faith in working through all of this with law enforcement?
Well, I can't imagine anyone viewing it as unimportant. Uh, Law enforcement is a deeply spiritual profession when you think about it, and not just. And I say this as a Christian chaplain from the biblical sense. Romans chapter 13 says that the authority that we have in government and in law enforcement especially is ordained by God, and we're doing God's work, whether we acknowledge it as that or not. But what can be more purely spiritual than saying I'm the person who goes out on the street to protect the innocent from evil, and to pursue the guilty. I mean, that if there's anything in the world that is a value that is consistent with the kingdom of God, that's it. Separating good from evil. And police officers do that every day. And I think that they are excited about functioning in that way. It makes us feel good. It makes us feel accomplished. It makes us feel like we've satisfied a sense of purpose when we can go home at the end of the day and say, I made a difference today. I took a bad guy off the street and I protected somebody.
Absolutely. David Edwards, where can people find you? Where can they reach out? Where can they see what you're doing now?
My email for Call for Backup is david@callforbackup.org. And I'm on LinkedIn as Dr. Edwards 2. The DR doesn't stand for doctor. It's my first and middle initial, Dr. Edwards 2. And Call for Backup is on Facebook, facebook.com/callforbackup.org. So track me down.
I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. And if you would like more information about us, visit the National Police Association at nationalpolice.org.
Are you passionate about supporting law enforcement? The National Police Association is on a mission to strengthen our communities, protect our families, and ensure justice prevails. But they need your help. Every dollar you donate makes a difference. It funds the legal defense of police officers and police agencies, supports advocacy for pro-law enforcement legislation, and funds community outreach programs and education. Imagine safer streets, stronger bonds between officers and neighborhoods, and a brighter future for all. Join us. Visit our website at nationalpolice.org to donate today.